advisor, consultant, and once upon a time, I founded an influencer agency called Scene Connects. I'm biased because I got to pull the panel together, but we have got shit-hot marketeers who are going to be talking all things creator economy, but also from the lens of it being truly, truly integrated, and how influencer marketing cannot be a bolt-on service. It has to be truly part of the marketing mix. So before we kick off, Mikey, do you want to take it away? Who are you? What do you do?
Yes, sure. I'm Mikey Robinson. I am senior creative at Gymshark. I've been there about 3 years. Started in the social media team, and now I'm working in the brand and creative team.
Oh, over to me.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Is it hotter than the sun in here?
It is
or
boiling. And
so
I'm
if I
like
could just
heavily
speak
pregnant.
in this, I don't know what I'm going to say, but I'm going to try my best. Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm CEO at Jungle Creations in the Wild by Jungle. I guess we're a business of two halves, really. Jungle Creations, which is our heritage, is a social publisher, one of the biggest social publishers in the UK and Europe. We have a collection of channels, and through the learnings of building those channels out, we launched our social and influencer agency, The Wild by Jungle, which will be the focus, I guess, of what I talk about today. But thanks all for coming. I feel like we're at Silent Disco. Hopefully we're as entertaining as that.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Gavin Jukes. I am the Marketing Solutions Lead for Retail and E-commerce in Europe. A little bit about what I do. So essentially I help brands like yourselves realize the commercial potential of TikTok and better engage audiences. So looking forward to today's panel. Hopefully take something away from it other than heat stroke. So let's see.
Cool. So we're going to kick into it and start all around all things creative. What I would say is we have got a panel here of people who've worked in the creative industry rather than people who have solely worked within influencer and creative. So I wanted to start with Gymshark because I know a lot of people have been excited to hear Mikey speak. But talk to me about the touch points that you go for when it comes to Gymshark and you're starting the campaign process.
Yeah, I think every campaign starts with the idea rather than necessarily looking at the platform or the channel or the influencer. How we work with influencers is probably a little bit different than most brands and most companies. Similar to how you guys worked when you were at ASOS with insiders, at Gymshark we have athletes, and they are kind of people with long-term partnerships with the brand. We do have different tiers of creators and influencers that we work with, but generally we work with people, they become an athlete. It's almost like our CMO calls it the equivalent of signing to a football club. It's kind of like a longer term deal, and so they become more part of the furniture, more part of the campaigns and how we build them out and how we develop them. We've just launched a new one called We Do Gym, which is all about us sort of staking a claim in the gym space. A little bit like Lululemon have yoga and North Face have mountaineering. Gymshark need to have gym. And the stars of that campaign are our athletes and our creators. And I think that's really good that we have that kind of ready-made, ready-to-go group of reputable, recognizable faces to feature in a campaign. It's great for them. It's something that they couldn't do necessarily on their own. And it's great for us because it sort of just builds them into everything that we're doing, and it's almost built-in exposure for your kind of content because the people that are starring in your content already have big followings themselves.
And then Gav, every brief I have seen in the last 2 to 4 years has been, I want to go viral on TikTok, which if any of you are brand side, that is absolutely not a brief. But is going viral on TikTok, is there the possibility for it to live outside of TikTok?
Yeah, so I think where TikTok over the last few years evolved from the sort of infant that it was as part of the sort of social scene, it's now moving away from having those sort of test and learn budgets. The sort of attempt to go viral off, those moments don't sort of happen in quite the same way anymore. And increasingly, as there's nearly 1.5 billion users on the platform, it needs to be considered as part of a more integrated plan. And so what starts on TikTok can absolutely transcend the platform. We see every day, I'm sure that you'll be at other sessions over the course of the next few days, how TikTok is shaping culture in all its various forms. So from the books that we read, the clothes that we wear, the places that we're traveling to go on holiday, those ideas that begin within the different communities on TikTok are infiltrating sort of broader culture but also broader media. So I know that there's lots of different brands that we work with that are considering how they build sort of familiarity and recognition in creators that they want to work with consistently and that stand for the same values that their brand does, and ultimately kind of their stronghold might be on TikTok, but they're leveraging those same voices, those same faces to speak on their behalf in other media too. So, I don't know, take an example. I think her name is Lucy Edwards. She's a creator on TikTok. She talks about how she navigates her life as a blind woman. She's a journalist, does a lot of sort of red carpet stuff. She's brilliant. And she was part of a campaign with Pantene. And I thought what was really interesting in that was kind of demonstrating how TikToks are kind of bridging that digital physical barrier, because that was all about how, as a blind woman, the touch of hair and how Pantene made her hair feel rather than how it looked was just a really interesting way of kind of the multisensory way that we have to approach marketing today. And they used her then in their outdoor campaign, in their TVC, and I think it just sort of helped compound a consistent message or perspective on that product and on that category, and was a really nice example of how you bring... I feel like people use the word authentic all the time when we talk about creators, but
this
actually that was
that word all day.
It was a very authentic way of integrating a creator into your campaign, less for the reach that they'll drive on your message, but rather for the take or the perspective that they put on your message, and help ultimately kind of turbo drive that on some other media spaces as well. So
Turbo drive. You're getting
Turbo
all
drive.
of that marketing thing
That's
going
the term.
there.
Yeah.
And then Mel, obviously your agency side, so you work with, support the Red Bulls, the Disneys of this world with all of their content distribution. Like, how do you help identify for brands the platforms that they should be using to get their content seen?
Yeah, look, I think Mikey referenced it, that everything starts with the idea. Ultimately, it's storytelling. And I don't think it's putting a square peg in a round hole, whether it's this platform or that platform. And I think through the nature of being a publisher, we've got audiences across Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, and beyond. So we have an innate understanding of what you're actually trying to achieve, and how do you use different platforms based on what you're trying to achieve. And I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all at all. So when we're working with a brand, I think there's too many agencies out there that will just sort of force what they're experts in on you
100%.
and say you have to be on TikTok or you have to be on Snap or whatever else it is. And it's like, actually, what's your business goal? Is this about ROI? Is it about mass awareness? Are you a D2C brand and it's more performance-led? And that should also dictate what platform you go on, as well as kind of the matrix of who you're trying to reach, what audiences, and what content can you afford to make, or are you going to be making, and what creators are you working with. So it's a bit of a way of not answering your question, so I do apologise, but I guess the ultimate thing is it's nuanced. And you need an agency that can have a strategic approach and a consultative approach that can genuinely support your business needs and not just kind of put you where they think is cool or headlining an event or whatever else it is.
Yeah. And I think this leads really nicely onto, we're going to talk about YouTube, and I'm fully aware I am on a Snapchat branded stage with someone from TikTok, but you at the moment cannot talk about...
uncomfortable.
You can't talk about creator and not talk about YouTube, and especially when we've got Mikey, who has just had a huge YouTube launch. So, but Mel, like, carrying on that flow, YouTube is a different beast, and a lot of influencer agencies shy away from it because, again, they'll be like, Instagram, TikTok, Snap, this is where I play and this is where I'm comfortable. Why is everyone saying that this is the year for YouTube?
I think YouTube's always been massive. It's huge. It's moving into connected TV. It's about the long form, so on and so forth, sort of all the stuff that we know. YouTube's always been a part of our story as a publisher. I think brands tend to shy away from it because it's really difficult.
Yeah.
It's a harder one to crack. You probably have to invest in it over the longer term rather than sort of a one-hit moment. When we think about influencer or creator marketing, we sort of steer away from the paying to borrow influence, land on a feed for a grid for a moment and then be gone tomorrow. It's how do you bring creators into your environment, like the Gymsharks have done very well and other brands, and actually own the influence over the long term. And I think YouTube is a fantastic home to do that. I won't reference the other brands that people talk about all the time that have done a really good job on YouTube. And the ROI from the YouTube platform, there's many studies out there, I won't quote the percentage because I'll get it wrong, to show that it's tremendously effective. in terms of driving bottom of the funnel results as well. So yeah, it ends up being a dumping ground, you know, for your TV ad or whatever else it is, and it's the complete opposite of what it should be. So yeah, it takes a brand that really wants to commit, but when you do it and get it right, phenomenal results. As well as TikTok and Snapchat and the rest.
And everyone else have to keep happy.
Yeah.
So talk to me about Hit It Off. Do you think you smashed it, hit all the touch points, got all the metrics that Mel's talked through?
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of go back a little bit and kind of touch on what Mel was saying, YouTube is really hard for brands to get involved in. It takes so much more in production, but the value there is massive. It's the second most visited website on the planet. 25% of all mobile traffic is YouTube.
Oh, you did know the data.
I did know the data because I looked it up before we came, but I also looked it up when I redid the strategy at the start of this year. And I think everyone looks at Gymshark as this kind of great brand for social. We kill it on Instagram, we kill it on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. YouTube was letting us down. We hundreds of thousands of subscribers versus the millions we had on other channels. So we kind of scrapped our strategy, went back to the start, and kind of looked at how we can appeal to the wider YouTube audience and not just the Gymshark audience. How can we make Gymshark content for gym people, but also for kind of Gen Zs and millennials? And we looked at what kind of content they were consuming everywhere else. The first one that we thought of was dating. Love Island, Help Me Out, Too Hot to Handle, Married at First Sight, all of that kind of stuff was key to our audience. So we decided to create Hit It Off, which was a dating show based in the gym. So 3 speed dates around the gym, doing different workouts. But even for that, we had to find the right influencers and the right creators to come on board and help us out with it. People within our own athlete roster weren't the right people. So we looked at people like Young Philly and GK Barry to bring them in as hosts, to really give us the credibility and the reach that we maybe needed to borrow from those influencers. And I think that's when integrating with the right creators for the right platform is really, really important. We couldn't just do it ourselves with our own people. We could have, but it probably would have flopped.
Yeah. What would you do differently if you had to do it again?
What would I do differently? To be honest, I probably would have given GK and Philly more screen time. That was the key. They're the people that people click to watch. I think the real thing about YouTube is it's not like an algorithm that's just going to serve you content.
Yeah.
You see a thumbnail and you have to choose it. Yes, the 20 thumbnails you see are served to you by an algorithm, but ultimately you have to click and choose. And it is those creators that will drive people to click on that content. So I probably would have sent GK Barry and Young Philly on more dates rather than just have them host. That's what I would do differently. But it's just understanding how to use them and really maximize. If you're going to invest in those creators that are particular to those platforms, make the most of them.
Yeah. And now taking it back to TikTok being excellent and wonderful.
Finally. Finally.
I actually got thrown a WhatsApp question as we were about to jump on stage. So I'm kind of throwing this one in, just making sure that the panel are on their toes. But I was talking to a brand who were talking about the fact they're about to launch in a new market. And you and I have obviously had different conversations about launching in new markets and actually how TikTok is a really quick, easy, and pretty cost-effective way to drive that awareness in other markets. Can you talk me through it?
Yeah, so I think, obviously, with the economy as it is today, lots of businesses and brands looking to drive incremental revenue by tapping into markets that they've not previously ventured into. And I think that this is something that we're definitely going to see now as we approach like the peak period where maybe sluggish consumer sentiment still is very much like prevailing in Western Europe and the UK. So we've got lots of brands sort of looking to think, right, how do I kind of crack the US strategy? I think obviously a robust kind of like paid plan. You want to make sure that the right people are seeing the right message at the right time in their path to purchase, of course. But creators as a sort of shortcut to embedding yourself within those relevant communities is absolutely key, because through that rapport, obviously, that they've built with the communities of which they are an integral part, that is like probably the clearest way for them to ultimately land their brand in a new market that is completely unaware of what they do, what their proposition is. And I think that there's a number of different brands that have done a brilliant job at that. I know that Gymshark is kind of expanding outwards and doubling down in new markets. But I think really identifying not actually the creator first, but the different communities that you think that your brand has a credible role to play within those new markets is key. And also kind of like thinking about seasonality and regionality going over to the States, like, are you going for a coastal or a city-based targeting plan, et cetera, et cetera. So there's quite a few different layers that I think you ultimately need to navigate in order to pick the creator that will help you cut through with the audiences that you think your brand can best serve. And of course, there's lots of new tools that will allow you to kind of engage those right creators. So we've got things like the new TikTok One Creative Suite, and then Symphony. So that is an opportunity for you to then scale your creative in new markets. Do you need to do adapts in terms of like language, for instance, with your existing creative? Maybe you've already signed up your cohort of influencers that you actually want to represent your brand in that market, and they don't speak Spanish. So there's lots of new tools with the advances in AI, which I still have trouble getting my head around, but it's obviously moving at such a pace.
We all do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scary. But yeah, I think there's sort of no one key way, of course, to crack it, and you have to make sure that your brand can deliver on its promise in terms of like, I don't know, delivery and returns, that your distribution is right, that your product mix is reflective of the market that you're looking to engage. But I think in terms of actually driving that cultural relevance and resonance with a new audience in a new market, finding the right creators is obviously key to kind of nailing that.
Yeah. Have you found that from a agency
Yeah,
side?
and I think we've been quite fortunate, again, sort of borrowing from our publishing business. So we've got a food and drink channel, for example, called Twisted. Twisted started as a Facebook page 10 years ago. It now lives across all of the platforms. We've got our own chefs and creators in-house, but we also work with a huge network of them. And we've tried to sort of take Twisted from URL to IRL. So we've got restaurants across the UK. We've actually just opened up a bar in Old Street. We've got some products in Iceland.
Go after this.
Yeah, and we'll go after this. It's your birthday, by the way. It's Gab's birthday today. Happy birthday to Gab.
The most people that I've ever been able to mobilise for my birthday. So
Yeah.
that feels good.
But what we've also done is taken Twisted to new territories and launched in new countries and languages. And the nuances of what recipes, what ingredients are available, how are different creators going to resonate. So we were able to test and learn with our own channels and then lift that network and be able to support our brands in that same environment. But absolutely agree with what you say. It kind of gives you that fast track to borrow for a temporary period of time. I still believe owning it in the long term is the right thing to do. That influence in new markets as well. And yeah, I mean, TikTok's great for that, and Snapchat's also fantastic for that. There we go. They're not paying me. But yeah, I completely agree.
Bro, and then the last point, so again, like rolling it back a million years when I started working in social, everything was very much about the vanity metrics. If you wanted to drive UTM data, it was me and Gab used to work together at ASOS, and it was pretty hardcore to try and prove the success outside of those vanity metrics. Whereas if you look at the platforms today, you've got Instagram Shop, you've got TikTok Shop. So just talk to me a little bit about the change in, like, I'll let you go, Mikey. Like, talk about Gymshark, how they drive commerce. Obviously, everything you see about Gymshark is you're shit hot at creative because they've got Mikey. Your campaigns get this mass distribution because they are truly integrated, but you get all the sales off the back of it too. Like, how does that work?
Sure. So, as I said, the creators that we work with don't just come on for a deal. We don't work with anyone for here's an Instagram post or can you make a TikTok, or even here's 5 Instagram posts or 5 TikToks. The minimum term we work with anyone is 3 months. We feel anything less than that feels horribly inauthentic. Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, what we call athletes, which are kind of our core, kind of longer term cohort, and we have sort of a different tiers below now as well. Everybody's got...
You've got the pyramid.
Yes, we've got the pyramid. Everybody's got a code, so everybody can tell their following to go and get an extra 10% off at Gymshark using that code. It allows us to track who's doing well, but also it's an incentive for them. It is a revenue share for them, because previously it was just, can you tell people about the sale? Can you tell people about this new t-shirt we've got? And actually giving them a code and giving them a cut of all of those sales
Can you
means
tell
that
us
they're...
what cut you give them?
Well, it's 10% off. So it is a portion of that
Okay.
per sale. So I'm going to leave it at
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I
got
think
the
from our
look that said
perspective-
that wasn't in the brief.
Absolutely. I think the days of influencer marketing or other forms of marketing on social media being sort of top of the funnel awareness metrics, it's not enough anymore. And actually influencer marketing, as well as others, can really be connected to performance. A lot of brands need the right infrastructure because not everybody's going to want a discount code or whatever else it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think a good influencer agency now will be telling you that and driving you those results, especially in where every pound has to go further.
Yeah.
But it needs to be integrated because otherwise you lose your pounds down the side of the sofa, unfortunately.
So with that in mind, Gav, what is the brand that you think are smashing it from a TikTok shop perspective?
So I think what we've seen, we're still in the relatively early days from TikTok Shop, and I think that what we see in kind of Asian markets is not necessarily kind of like what we necessarily will see how people are shopping in Western markets,
Yeah, of course.
especially in terms of like product mix and so on. I think that in the sort of early days of TikTok Shop, what we've seen is incredible for sort of growth brands. I think the thing that I'm really excited by now, where it's kind of like a proven source of unlocking again that incremental revenue. It's another sales channel for a lot of retail and e-commerce brands that they didn't have before. So this is another huge way of recruiting new customers into your brand that perhaps you haven't been reaching in your typical sales or media channels. And that's really interesting to see sort of brands go from 0 to 60 at brands like Wonderskin, those sorts of things. And just the incredible GMV that they're driving. I think where I'm kind of excited next is to see how traditional players are going to sort of adapt their business or their business models to take advantage and leverage the opportunity that's coming with TikTok Shop. So I know ASOS is a recent addition where, you know, looking at kind of what the product assortment is on there, the types of creators that will help engender that sense of trust that's required to, transact within a couple of clicks rather than leaving the site or having a more protracted consideration window.
Yeah.
Other brands like Puma. No, some of that. I think that the excitement for me, as well as obviously what it's doing for these incredible startups and growth brands, is to understand in terms of what the future of commerce looks like, how some of these sort of Herculean brands and businesses adapt to best take advantage of that closed loop commerce solution.
And as those kind of changes come out from a platform such as the TikTok Shop, do you think brands can just jump on it, experiment, and give it a go? Or do you think there always has to be like a really clear strategy? This is our approach. This is how we're going to do it.
Actually, I hope no one from work is here. No, I don't think it needs to be as sort of heavily engineered and strategized as... Because I think that, as with anything, when you're experimenting with new channels or new routes to market, there's going to be a sort of iterative test and learn approach. And so understanding what communities you want to infiltrate, what creators are best working on your behalf to, as part of the affiliate scheme.
Yeah.
But because, again, of that like closed loop, the signal loss is minimal. You understand who's driving what for you, at what frequency, at what basket value, and being able to sort of have those real-time numbers and understand kind of what the channel impact is direct is basically a route to you being able to consistently and constantly sort of iterate on your approach and hone it to drive whatever, the objective is at that moment.
Yeah. And then last bit, because we are at time.
Oh yeah, the man on the stage is coming to collect us.
Oh, fine. I was just going to say, how do you support brands? Because it is quite a mindset shift. It's obviously, there's all the memes about how if you're in social media, you have to be a photographer, a videographer, an influencer manager, a lawyer, because you've got to do all the contracts. Now throw commerce in the mix too. How do you support brands on that?
Yeah, no, and I do think it is about testing and learning. This is why I think, to the point that you work with athletes 3 months minimum, for us with a brand, it's a long-term relationship.
Yeah.
So it's understanding how do we test and learn together, but do it in a way where you're actually recording your results and tracking what's working and what isn't. And then how do you evolve that relationship over time and build trust? Because for a lot of brands, this will be a risk, and it's someone's job, and that's sort of what their boss is going to tell them they're getting a pay rise for or not. So I think it's about being a true partner and building a long-term relationship.
Yeah. my favourite little anecdote at TikTok Shop is my dad runs a wholesale import-export on toys, and we just got him on TikTok Shop, and he sold 46,000 units of a playmat.
How many?
46,000.
Wow.
And he's literally like, what the fuck is this? He can barely even reply to an email. And he's like, there's this thing called TikTok Shop, and they're selling these playmats. I'll send you his case study, John. Sorry.
Thank you very much. I've got 4 questions.
Cool.
So 1 for Gymshark, 1 for Gavin, and 2 for the panel. So Gymshark,
Sorry, mate.
how have you reacted internally to the success of James, Beardwell, and McKenna?
James Beardwell and McKenna.
Yeah.
James Beardwell, I gave his first campaign to a while ago. We are constantly watching people on TikTok and Instagram and trying to find people kind of bubbling under and try and get them in as early as possible. James, we've been working with longer than McKenna. McKenna's one of our kind of new additions to the team. But they're driving, like I said, with their codes, great sales for us, but also like earning a really good wage for them. And it's that revenue share model that we've kind of happened upon that I think they really, really love, and they respond, and they're invested in us as a brand. They want to talk about the product because we're giving them an incentive to do so. So yeah, it's been amazing for us.
Great. Gavin, we, not me, but someone in the audience has launched on TikTok Shop as a brand. What's the one most important thing we need to do to ensure success?
Upload product.
I think it's having the confidence to be open-minded about deviating from what you thought your sort of core strategy should be. I think, to Mel's point, being on top of the numbers, understanding who is resonant with your audience. If you're selling, I think also people think about TikTok Shop in the sort of live sense, but forget actually that it's the sort of closed loop shopping element as well. So it's not just about people, on live streams selling with things going on a conveyor belt or whatever it might be. Ensuring that you're partnering when it comes to, those in-feed videos, stuff that's going to be entertaining, will stop people in their tracks. I mean, 75% of users on TikTok have discovered a product through a creator ad. So making sure that you're coupling the obsession with numbers and making sure that whatever activity you're doing is measurable with an entertaining approach, because it is, after all, an entertainment platform, to ensure that you're being as compelling with different audiences and understanding which ones work best for you.
Great. What is the best way to scale your creator campaigns? We're new to influencer partnerships and have a few planned this year, but we need to know more.
Call me. No, I think sometimes it's about patience as well, actually, and not running before you're walking. It's really exciting stepping into creator and influencer marketing for the first time. But what also, I think, where we see brands go wrong is 2 things work, and then they think if I times it by 10, it's going to work the same. Yeah. So I think it's absolutely about doing it iteratively, a phased approach, working with a good agency partner who can do a lot of the legwork for you and the testing and learning. But yeah, I think my advice would be to do it in a phased way. I mean, Sedge, in your experience from that?
Yeah, I would add the same thing. I think often you get this budget pot and it's go away, do something, but actually really interrogating the data and really understanding what good looks like for your individual business. And then MVP testing, if it's athletes is broad. So actually which athletes, which kind of segmentation within those audience groups works? Is it the big hitters? Is it the kind of grassroots, low level? That is different based on each business that you work with. So it's really understanding what good looks like before you start and then looking at how you can scale that.
Yeah.
Can I add a tiny bit of advice to that as well? People are always asking us what is our sort of secret sauce, and it's not influencers with followers, it's influencers with communities. It's influencers who are integrating forward and back, that are properly social on their social media. Whether for us they've got a run club or a Facebook community group or a WhatsApp broadcast channel, but that are doing that kind of community building within their own following.
Well, that's great. We're out of time. Thank you for your questions, and thanks to the panel once again.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.